Welcome, everyone, to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Victoria Roberts Drogin. Thank you for joining us. One of the bravest women we've ever had the privilege of knowing is Lana Noone of the Vietnam Babylift.
Back in 2009, Lana told us about when she discovered she could not have a baby and why she made the decision to adopt a baby from a faraway country. This was unheard of at that time.
Today, Lana is back with us to share her ongoing story of the Vietnam Babylift. Welcome to Family Comes First. It's been about 7 years since we last talked with Lana Noone about Operation Babylift, which involved the evacuation of 10,300 babies and children from Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War.
Since then, Lana has been involved in continuing to remind the world of that amazing feat and its impact on our global society.
Let's take a look at Lana's last visit to Family Comes First.
Well, my husband and I decided to adopt after we'd been married 6 years and we were childless. And in those days, there wasn't much to offer. You know, we went to the doctors, but everybody we knew had a baby but us. We were the only ones in our crowd. And we went to the pastor of our church and we asked him if he knew of an adoption agency that we might go to. And he did. We had planned on adopting a baby from the United States. And when we spoke with the social worker, she said there was a 2-year wait for an American baby. And I remember thinking, oh no, another 2 years of being childless. And so we said, well, any other options? Can you offer us anything else? And she said a very fateful sentence. She said, have you considered adopting a baby from Vietnam? The Babylift began in March of 1975, and then President Ford, who was an adoptee himself, authorized Babylift on April 2nd, 1975, after the plane landed in Oakland, California. The president of our adoption agency phoned and said there are 3 babies left in hospital in Denver, Colorado, Denver Children's. 2 of them are ready to be released in the next day or so. The 3rd one is still quite ill. It's touch and go. Would you like one of those babies? She said, well, the 3rd baby is quite ill. If she survives, she's your daughter. And that baby became my daughter, Jennifer Noone, who's now 34 years old. She was the last baby to be evacuated from Vietnam, April 26, 1975, and she arrived home to us on June 5th, 1975. We adopted our son, Jason Pak Noone, and he arrived from Korea on December 11th, 1979. The fact that we just were so grateful that we were allowed to be parents. I think my daughter talks about the fact that the Vietnam Babylift was a moment of great spiritual significance. And Jason thanks the missionaries who were the people who actually ran his orphanage and saved his life. And I think that's what adoption, international adoption especially, is a miracle. And just how blessed you are when you're a family that God has created in that manner. So I'm just thrilled.
Now let's welcome Lana Mae Noone. Lana Mae, as I learned, and also known as Global Mom.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Welcome, Lana. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you back.
Thank you so much.
And
great
I know
to be back.
much has happened, and we're now 1 year after celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Operation Babylift in Vietnam. And we're going to talk about that later. But first, I want to ask you about Global Mom, because you've written a book a number of years ago.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, people had come up to me and my husband Byron and they said to us, you were pioneers in international adoption. Nobody had ever heard of it before you started working on that in 1974. So the book is Global Mom, Notes from a Pioneer Adoptive Family.
What led up to this title, and tell us about what happened?
Well, the pioneer part was just what I kept hearing, and Global Mom just sort of popped into my brain one day and seemed like a good title for 10 notes, 10 chapters. 2 written by my children, Jenny and Jason, a poem by my husband, Byron, and the rest by me, of 10 chapters and ideas for global families, but really for all families.
Yeah. Tell us some of the ideas.
Well, thank you so much. Some of the ideas include teaching your children to have a skill, an artistic skill, an athletic skill, so that when the teenage years come, and they're so powerful, the marketplace becomes very powerful for children, especially adoptive children, but really all.
Talk a little more about that piece of it, though, that
Yes.
how an adopted child may be impacted differently.
Every so often they'll hear a comment that isn't perhaps the best thing to hear. Where are you from? Did your real parents want you? Do you know who your real parents were? And children will hear that in the playground. And as a parent, you know, you get your shackles up. What can I do for my child? Well, a child with a skill, an instrument, art, sports, something where they're valued for who they are and not what maybe perhaps what they didn't have.
That's
early on.
phenomenal.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Also faith. We're just blessed. We have a wonderful church community. I don't think I'd be here without that church community, nor my kids.
Well,
Meant a lot.
I think the first point you've made here, self-esteem comes to mind.
Yes,
How important it is for any child.
Yes.
But then there are certain children who are more challenged
Yes,
in life.
absolutely.
And that building that self-esteem, because we're all, you know, God's children.
Yes.
And so that's terrific that you're bringing this up as a message, really, for our viewers, to just be reminded of that.
Yeah. And you wrote this some time ago?
Yes, it was after my husband died, and I also felt I wanted to give back. And we had several friends, sisters, nuns, and other faith community people working in orphanages. So part of the book was to help them a little bit with some funding, and also gave me something to do as the children get older and they are off on their own path.
Yeah, and very practical advice for children today, even adopted and otherwise, because the world has gotten competitive and very judgmental, and the comparisons are immediate. So, you know, having a skill is a profound gift.
Yes, that's
if
perfect.
parents could give their children.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also faith, that's the bulwark of anything. I felt that very strongly, my husband did. And humor, we wrote about that in the book. Try to have a sense of humor. You'll need it when your children reach a certain age and you know, you hear the, Mom, you're wearing that, or you know, you're doing that.
Yes,
Well,
we've all
now-
heard that.
Well, now your kids have grown up since that time of writing that book. So tell us more about your 2 children today and how old they are and what they're up to.
My daughter's married, and she and her husband met in Vietnam.
Oh my goodness.
And,
This is Jenny.
So yes, my daughter Jenny.
Who you
and,
adopted from Vietnam.
From Vietnam via Babylift. She went back to Vietnam and met her British husband in the middle of Vietnam.
Now,
so
why,
that's
what,
very exciting.
why did she go back to Vietnam? What led her to go? Do you have any sense? Or?
She said she wanted to give back a little bit, help some of the people over there learn to speak the language and just immerse herself in the land of her birth. And I understood.
Of course.
And then, of course, she met the man that she ultimately married there. So, and they both love to travel, and that's what she does.
Had she been to Vietnam before then?
Yes, great question. We were very fortunate in the year 2005 for the anniversary, let's see, that would be the 30th anniversary of Babylift. World Airways invited several families to go back to Vietnam. So my daughter was part of that. And she was chosen, and each person was allowed to bring 1 guest. So Jen called up and said, Mom, would you like to come to Vietnam for a week? And Mom said, sure, I've got a toothbrush. I'll be there. When do we go?
Great.
So she had
Fabulous.
been there. And then my son Jason from Korea, and he's been back to Korea several times. And he's actually been back to his orphanage and met the director, who's a missionary.
Oh my goodness.
And she's a wonderful woman.
What was that like for him to connect in that way? Well, share
Amazing.
that.
Well, thank you so much. It was a trip sponsored by the Korean community, and they actually got to go to the Blue House, which is like our White House.
Oh, okay.
And they met the First Lady of Korea. He has a commemorative watch.
You're kidding.
Like it's given to visiting dignitaries.
Wow.
He's got one of those, and
Oh,
went
how
back to his
exciting.
orphanage and connected with this wonderful woman there. And now, of course, he has 2 children of his own.
Amazing.
My grandchildren, Heather and Jaden, the apple of my eye.
Beautiful.
And so that's been wonderful that we have that connection.
Sure.
So they've been busy, you've been busy, Mom, Grandma, a lot going on. Yeah. What have you been doing sort of since then?
Great question. And one of the things I did was to meet up with 8 other folks who had been active in Operation Babylift. We waited so many years for someone to do a play, a feature film. Nobody did it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take a break.
Oh,
But when we
okay.
come back, we want to hear all about it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be right back on Family Comes First, Operation Babylift.
Welcome back to Family Comes First. We've been talking to Lana Noone, whose mission is to spread the word about this historic event, Operation Babylift.
And now we're going to take a look at an excerpt from a reading of the play, Children of the April Rain.
This is the play for many audiences, for the military, of course, anyone who lived during the Vietnam era, anyone who's ever heard of the Vietnam War. This is the women's story, the story of the fall of Saigon, the story of a group of people who saw children in harm's way, who had no chance for survival, and sacrificed so much.
I'm Lana Noone. My husband and I were waiting for our infant to arrive here that April in 1975.
There's a great amount of accountability that as artists we're really lucky to be able to do this time. It's not we're just performing some play that's 600 years old or just pretending to be someone in the film. We have a chance to do something good, to carry on these amazing stories and to do good work with them and to do good in the world with them. So I feel very lucky to be a part of that and to have a community of artists who all believe that, to generate that and carry that message forward.
You pulled into the processing center in buses filled with babies. Busloads. They're in the heat.
Infants waiting for hours all day.
They were sad-looking little babies. I can still see them. I wondered if they would make it. Wondered what would become of them.
With the central Vietnamese city of Da Nang having fallen in March and Saigon under attack in April of 1975, U.S. President Ford announced that the U.S. government would begin evacuating orphans from Saigon in a series of 30 planned flights.
Thousands of children were relocated and adopted by families in the United States and by our allies.
So Lana, here we are to talk about this beautiful play that explores the stories of these children and the families who took them in and gave them loving homes. Tell us about this project.
Well, thank you. And yes, we had waited many years for a feature film or a play about Babylift, and there just wasn't happening. So 9 of us, 8 of the unsung heroes and me, decided we'd write our own play. And we were very fortunate to meet up with a playwright, William Bryant Doty. And he had just recently retired, worked in Hollywood and for the National Archives. And he said, yeah, I'm looking for a project. So he became our, we call ourselves 9 characters in search of an author. He became our playwright, and we've got the play Children of the April Rain, co-written by 9.
How are the 9 connected?
Most of them were involved in our agency, Friends of Children of Vietnam. The director, the field director, a wonderful sister, Sister Therese LeBlanc from International Immaculate Heart of Mary in Michigan. A hippie. We've got a hippie who became Mr. Corporate America.
That
Sally
happens.
Vineyard, Defense Attaché Office. She was on the final helicopter, the one you always see in the photos. So was Ross. Colonel Kane, who was at the Presidio, commanding officer, Presidio San Francisco, opened his heart opened the Presidio to those children, and volunteers from every walk of life in San Francisco, military, corporate America, suburban housewives, hippies, they were all there. They all came to help the children because of Colonel Kane. And they're all co-authors of our story.
Ah, phenomenal. I have goosebumps. It's beautiful. And the children, where are these children today? What are they doing?
Great question. We were very fortunate. Sister Mary Nell Gage and Sister Susan McDonald, two sisters, had reunions every 10 years out in Colorado where they're based. And then in the year 2000, we had a major reunion in Washington, D.C. at the Wall. We had the last commanding general of the Vietnam War, General Homer Duggins Smith, one of my personal heroes. He closed the wall. We had a private ceremony. And the internet began. And we all reconnected. I dare say now, between all of the social media outlets, most of those 2,500 children from Babylift have some way of reconnecting.
Amazing.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm going to try to take you back to 1975. And can you share with us some of the more memorable stories of what it was like at that time for those involved, for you as an adopting parent?
Great question. We started the process in 1974, in the fall of autumn of 74. We were approved in February of 75. We were told it would take 6 to 9 months for the paperwork to be completed. And we got a picture, a black and white grainy picture of a little baby. We named her Heather, Constance Noone. And we began our wait. And then in March, the Viet Cong started moving south. And we were told none of the babies would ever come home.
Wow.
So we started a phone chain, very non-tech way of communicating. What do we do? Do we contact the president, the White House, the Congress? And then there was the maverick flight of Ed Daly. 57 Vietnamese war orphans arrive in San Francisco. The next day, the President of the United States, President Ford, who is an adoptee himself, he signed Babylift into law, and he said, military aircraft will bring those babies out.
Wow.
And that's when it began. And we started our wait. Everyone was getting called to the airport, their baby's coming home, except for our daughter. We learned she was hospitalized in the Philippines, then at Long Beach Naval Hospital, California, then Denver General. Then on April 22nd, we got the call, come to JFK, she's coming home. Heather was very ill.
Yeah.
She was hospitalized on the final day of the Vietnam War. I watched the fall of Saigon from her hospital room, feeling like I was in a twilight zone of life. My daughter's in a hospital, and Saigon has just fallen. And Heather died on May 17th, 1975 at 4:30 in the afternoon. 3 babies were left, and our daughter Jenny is the final baby ever placed from Babylift.
And your son named one of his children?
Yes,
Heather?
yes, my son,
How
our son,
special.
Jason, is from Korea. When he and his wife Rosemary were expecting their first child, he said, "Mom, if it's a boy, we're going to name him after Dad. If it's a girl, can we name her after my sister,
Oh my goodness.
Heather?"
What
I said, "Oh my goodness, yes. Another Heather Noone is in the world." So my 13-year-old granddaughter is Heather and knows about her Auntie Heather in heaven.
What an
And Vincent J.
amazing, you've created this culture in your family where there's
think
such
so, yeah.
do you know what I mean? For Jason to have that
Yes.
connection is so beautiful.
That
So
meant a lot to me,
beautiful.
too. We've always talked about their baby sister, who's a baby angel in heaven, and they believed us.
Yes,
So
of
we're
course.
very grateful, and we have Heather and Jaden, her little brother, and they're my little angels.
Yes.
It's
Happy
interest-
grandma.
Yeah.
It's the best.
It's interesting that you have shared with us what's going on today. We're trying to reconnect those children and their families. Can you speak to that a little further?
Yes, thank you. In 2003, I was connected via the internet with some wonderful Vietnam veterans, one of whom was Charlie Wilbur. And he said, "Oh, I've heard about your story. Is there anything I can do to help you?" And I said, "Well, I've always liked the idea of having my own website." And the next day he said, "You have it.
Oh, how wonderful.
So that's VietnamBabylift.org. He's a wonderful veteran, Vietnam veteran, and his family. And through the website, we hear from people
Right.
every so often that try to reconnect with their long-lost
And
children.
what is the web, and what, so tell us about the website.
Oh, thank you. It's VietnamBabylift.org. And we have avenues for people to try to connect with families, with some of the people who wrote our play, who were there. And every so often we do reunite families.
Yeah, long lost siblings.
Yes,
And I mean,
yes.
that's amazing.
We're very grateful when that happens.
So it's proactive on one hand, but also you're collecting the history,
Yes, yes.
which is so important.
Yes.
We so easily forget the past.
Yes.
And this is another one of those historical events that should never be forgotten. And so having that site allows people to access information that they otherwise wouldn't have. And then the connecting part is just
Amazing.
is fantastic.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. We're also on social media, and we connect in that way too. And that's always wonderful when we can help reunite and tell the story.
Yeah. And now the PR from the play.
Yes.
So it's all coming together, you know, and I'm sure the website is bolstering the play and.
Yes,
And
yes.
So where is it performed? Where?
Well, thank you for asking. We've been very fortunate. We've performed here on Long Island, off Broadway at Judson Memorial Church in New York City in the Village.
Yeah.
We were at WMSA, Women in Military Service for America Theater, outside the Arlington Gate for last Veterans Day. We were performing at Veterans Day of 2016, American Air Power Museum, and we've been invited to perform in April 2017 for the anniversary at the New York City Vietnam Veterans Memorial Plaza on Water Street.
Bravo.
We're working on that.
So excited.
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, we're delighted.
Let's take a break at this point, but we're going to stay tuned because we are going to have Lana on with Father Tony. So we'll take a break on Family Comes First.
Joining us now with Lana Noone is our spiritual advisor, Father Anthony Stanganelli. Welcome, Father Tony. Thank you for being here with us today.
Once again, thank you so much for being on a fantastic episode. And Lana, I was just so taken by just your own reflection of that time of life, the time of our own history, and what you and so many others were able to do to make something good come out of something that was such a dark part of our own national history. But you know, really is a story of redemption, that whenever there is things such as war and destruction and homelessness and things that happen as a result of war, good always triumphs. Good always triumphs. And isn't that really is the story of redemption? And to see that personally, as you've been an instrument for so many, not only in your own personal life, but to help publicize the stories for others to, again, come to see where good triumphs. Thank you for what you've done.
Yeah.
Father, I think it's like setting someone has to set the path. And it's so much easier for those who follow to go down that path. And you were a trailblazer, a pioneer at that time, maybe not knowing it.
Definitely not knowing
But
it.
clearly that is the case. And you've alluded several times to your faith. Share with us how important your faith has been to you in your life's journey.
Great question. Thank you. It's everything. It's absolutely everything. I always say death has swirled around me quite a few times and different tragedies. And the one thing that's always the bulwark, the thing that holds me steady is faith. And I'm so grateful to God, grateful to Jesus for every single moment. And just that I'm here at this point in my life, growing towards more faith because I always find it wanting. But I'm just so grateful that I'm on that path in my journey.
the strength that you've had.
Well, again, I feel it's those, standing on shoulders of my own family, my parents, my husband, my late husband, who had tremendous faith, and I talk to him and think about him so much. And so there are others before me, and I'm just grateful for every moment. And our pastor talks about not holding grudges, but having grace.
Yeah.
And so I keep trying to do that very much as well.
I know Father Tony has said, you can't look too hard at things, otherwise you won't do it. You just have to feel it. And you talked about that with Jenny, after
Yes.
what happened with Heather. And, that speaks to me. Sometimes you just have to feel your way.
Isn't that true? I mean, so many times we look for so many facts to try to support what we're going to do. But after a while, it's that blind leap, blind leap of faith that says, I can't be paralyzed by facts. I have to just move forward to what I know is right and good. And being a trailblazer as a result of it, wow, that's awesome.
Now, you two have connections here.
Yes.
So share those connections. It's amazing.
Well, tell us a little bit about, those great airport runs of
Goodness gracious, yes. We had tried to bring clothing and supplies to different orphanages, and we worked with a wonderful group of adoptive parents called the Open Door Society. And Father, you were involved with the Open Door Society too.
Well, one of a dear friend of mine was involved with the Open Door Society, and so it kind of commandeered me to be welcoming children from Korea, and how great that was to see, again, the generosity of people that just so overwhelms me, to see how they're willing to go out of their way to make a home and a place of stability for children who have nothing. And that was just a great, beautiful gift for me.
Yeah.
So, children of the April Rain,
Yes, thank you.
If you hear that it's going to be played in your area, please go see it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We look
you so
forward
much.
to your efforts moving forward. I know you keep working on new projects related to the Operation Babylift. So thank you so much for being on our show.
And
Again,
enjoy those
for the second
beautiful
time.
babies. Enjoy those
And
beautiful
Father Tony,
babies.
as always, thank you for your
Thank
thoughts
you.
and
Thank you
comments.
so much. Thank you.
For a list of all these resources and more information, please visit Vincent's Law Firm website at vjrussolaw.com.
Thanks to all our viewers for joining us. And remember, family truly does come first.